And good evening, everybody. Welcome to an all-new episode of Holotheatre. As always, I'm Dan Tartagleone, also known as D Tartag1. Joining me tonight as the champion of the Champions League is the one and only Matt Harrison Trainer. How you doing today?
Pretty good. How are you?
I, you know what? I can't complain. It feels like I was here a couple days ago, but we're back here doing a all-new episode of Holotheatre, and yeah, it feels good. Uh, Before we get started, I know I said Matt. Is it Matthew? Matt, which do you prefer?
I really don't care. I think some people do one, some people do the other.
Mm-hmm.
MHT, a lot of people do, not just Star Wars, but
Yeah.
it's somehow very natural that multiple people come up with it
you know,
separately.
yeah, like on our streams, like over with the Champions League and everything, I've referred to you as MHT, as Matt. Matthew, I don't think I've referred to you as Matthew. So, but yeah, you're coming on tonight. We got a lot to talk about in regards to the Champions League, as well as your really nice run at Worlds last year, coming in at second. I mean, I know you didn't necessarily win, but finishing second at Worlds, especially a stacked field that what it was, is definitely an impressive feat. And I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. Uh, However, before we get really into it, let's go ahead and check on what's going on in the Star Wars CCG world right now. Uh, I know that the San Diego Super Open just ended. However, the current big event is the GEMP PC. I know you're in that. I'm in that. There's a bunch of people. I think we have 100 different players involved in the GEMP PC. So uh, definitely a fun event, and kudos to Batmouse for getting over the 100 mark on the participants. So
Yeah, that
checking.
looks very exciting. Especially that lower bracket looks incredibly stacked, and I'm interested to see what happens there.
And I know you're the number two seed overall, right behind Joe Olson. Uh, how's that feel? Like, are you okay going being in the top four, but right behind Joe, even though you did better last year than him at Worlds?
Yeah, I mean, he's won probably more things consistently, at least in the last 3 years. Even if maybe I've done better in the last year, I don't know if that's true, but I mean, I think like winning one game or two games is like it's every individual game is quite random, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
about overall success and sustained success.
True. I mean, you've won. I know you won the OCS a couple years ago. So it's not like you haven't. I think you won the OCS.
Yeah, the year
Yeah, you
before
did.
it is I
And checking on some of the players who have already advanced. Ketwall advanced over at Aaron Freed. He'll face Bill Kafer, so that's going to be an exciting one. I think Ketwall's one of the players who definitely was underseeded by Batmouse. Eric Spixma will face Matt Scott. E. Spangler will face Ryan Jelson. Kendall Hallman will face Sam Tashima. Pat Johnson advances. Jared Konsker advances to play Jeremy DePaulo. Ed Sheehan will face Brad Kipple. Rebel CPA will face Greg Shaw. Chris Gogolin will face Jeff Levine. Drawlock Jaron Webb, who took me down last year, will face Chris Werfs. You will face Mr. Adam CFC in the essentially the second round. Garrett Larson will advances to face the winner of Stimpy versus Sargundo. Or Scotland Gorell will face off against Connor Britton. Lom Hawkeye. David Center will face off against Justin Miyashiro. Myself, I advanced to, and I will place Dennis Reinhardt, one of the players who did pretty well at San Diego. Daniel Amore, who came in second at San Diego, will face off against Kyle Kruger. Again, Daniel, one of those players that Batmouse really put down there. Like, I think Batmouse should have put himself a little lower, and maybe some of these other players higher. But as he puts it, it's his tournament; he can do what he wants.
we've potentially got that rematch of the finals there in 2 rounds, right? Of uh
Uh,
of
you're
Drew and
not wrong. Yeah. Uh, Drew, as the number seven seed, does have the potential to face off against Daniel Moore. Daniel does have to get past Kyle Kruger and either Batmouse or John McFarlane. Brian Fred will face off against Ash Nolo. Mike Turner faces off against David Woods. Lawrence Kraft faces off against Charlie Arlinson, and Wolfman, I think that's Mr. Kyle Kalin, faces off against Matt Lutz. And then Brandon Beatty will face off against Timo Dussel. So still a lot of games to go on in the GEMP PC. Make sure you guys follow along on GEMP to see when some of these games are playing. I don't know if you're interested, but I'm playing Dennis Thursday. So I'll try and not embarrass myself. But looking on down the line, the 2023 OCS is right around the corner. We're about a little over 7 days essentially from the OCS starting up. So if you haven't signed up for it, go ahead and get it. I mean, the OCS is a fun event. If you play, we got some really good prizes to give out in terms of foils, and then obviously there's surprises for making the top 8. If you're interested in the foils, well, we got some really cool ones. February is going to be an AI of Merrick Steele, the Emperor's Reach. March is a Probot AI. May is going to be Vader's Lightsaber. June is Jedi Lightsaber. And then July and September are going to be I Don't Like Sand and Coarse, Rough, and Irritating. So the sand effects are getting an AI. And then if you do the Perfect Attendance, which is 70 plus games, you get a foil copy of Jedi Business. And then on top of that, the prizes have been upped as well. And then also, there's going to be a random vouchers for 4 players who do the Perfect Attendance will receive a $25 travel voucher. So the PC is up their game with the OCS, and I'm glad to see it. And then also next month, in between February 17th through the 26th, is going to be Online Play Week. All you got to do to participate in Online Play Week is play some games on GEMP, or if you play on Holotheatre still, you can play there, and you'll get yourself a cool foil Lord Sidious and a cool foil Master Windu. And then, as announced during the San Diego Super Open streams, we have a few new volunteers to the teams. Bill Kafer is now a part of the design and development team. Joe Olson joins the competitive balance team. And then Keith Brown and Chris Hall will be joining player card development. And Aaron Freed is joining on with the proofing team. And then you still have a couple more months regarding the PC 2023 donations program. Again, the donations program is the only way to really get these cool deck boxes. We've seen some of them. I think a few of the players got them over this weekend at San Diego. So make sure you donate to the PC to get the deck boxes that you want. And then last but not least, the U.S. Nationals is going to be coming to Minnesota during, I believe it is in March 31st through April 2nd. And if you're interested in going that, we've already been released and privy to the theme of the event. To coincide with the release of the Mandalore Season 3, the theme will be Mandalorians, or Mandalore, or Mandalorian. So get your decks ready for Minnesota. Get yourself some cool Mandalorian swag. And I know the Minnesota guys are already getting ready for a cool event. I know Garrett, I think he's running the event. So it's going to be a fun time. Any thoughts? Are you planning on going to nationals at all, Matt?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I just have to double check whether like a conference at the same time or something. But if I can make it, I waited a little too long on San Diego to book flights, and they went up, so I was disappointed about that.
Yeah, going across the country to like that is just not cheap. And I definitely would have liked. I mean, it would have been good to see you at San Diego. Like, it was definitely a fun event and everything. We did have 25 players who participated. Just to recap it, and then Drew Lichtenstein ended up winning it. He's now the quote-unquote Mr. November of January of Star Wars CCG, as his buddy Mike Kessling, I think, has coined the phrase. So again, congratulations to Drew on your victory. It was a fun event to watch, I'll tell you that.
I think from from watching it, the format looked really cool. I'd be very interested in playing in an event with the same format.
And I think, yeah, a lot of people said the same thing. Like, I know you were in the chat, and I know there was a bunch of people in the chat. We see the normal events are, if you're doing Swiss, it's 8 games on Saturday, a top 8 on Sunday. Like, how do you feel about like playing only 6 games on Saturday and then 4 on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, even for something like Worlds, you could even do like 8 games on Saturday and 4 on Sunday if we wanted to switch the format up. But I think just having that sort of last 6 or 4 games being so many high level games between all the people at the top.
Yeah,
it seemed like they sort of all played each other twice, right? We really got to see all those matchups. And
yeah, I think Drew said he played the top 3 or 4 players twice. Like, just running the gauntlet right there, that had to be a little tiring.
Yeah, but if you get to the finals like you did, right, and then you win the finals, then you deserve it, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Right. I mean, I think we've heard people say if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, and clearly Drew was doing it. Like, I mean, I think he lost 3 games all weekend, but he won the 2 that really mattered.
Well, like, how many people have won 2 majors in the last 2 years, right? I think that's a pretty short list.
I think you're right. In the last, going back to 2021, I mean, it's pretty much Joe who has won. I think he won the U.S. Nationals 2 years in a row, and I know Endor was won by 2 different players. The MPC was won by Drew, and then we're not doing an MPC this year. But I mean, you got to count Justin Desai for winning Worlds, and then the OCS
right after.
That was a hell of a run by Justin at that point. I mean, the high level competition is definitely there, and I think people have said that even though like the mid tier players are catching up, the best players are still winning the events.
Well, I think like Drew, winning 2 puts him right up, right? It shows that he's there. And I know he's a bit disappointed after the Worlds where he didn't make top 8, but it's, this is one of the things where you play 8 games, going 6-2 is so close, right? One of those games you lose and suddenly you're not there. But that's what I like about the 10 games, right? Is it gives you so many chances to break. You can play, I guess you probably played 8 games against those top players, right? And won 5 of them, at least.
I know he lost against Greg Shaw, and he lost against Daniel Moore, and then I think he lost to Connor Britton as well. And looking at the standings from the events, I mean, we all know that Greg came in 3rd, Daniel came in 2nd, and I think Connor came in. I want to say he was in the top 8. Let me just double check that really quick. But that's insane that he had such a nice run. Yeah, Connor was 6th.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I really didn't like from the standpoint of playing the 10 games was, though, only 2 players got to play in the essentially the playoffs. Like,
right.
You had a cutoff where between Drew and Greg, it was 3 points of strength of schedule differential. Like, that's insane.
Yeah. On the other hand, either of them could have won, an extra game, right, and gone 8-2 and
true,
and made it in themselves,
true,
right?
True. And I mean, I believe we had Drew and Greg both on the 10th game on stream. Greg on the PC channel, and then Greg and I believe it was Phil on our secondary channel. I think it was Justin Miyashiro doing the stream for that one. But you're right, like Drew and Greg both lost that last game, and both of them at that point were, I mean, Daniel, Drew, and Greg were all tied, were 2 losses apiece. So, but enough talking about San Diego. Let's get into yourself. You took down the Outer Rim League last year, and then you got yourself into the Champions League, and you took down your pod. You came out first in your pod, and then you went through the essentially the 4 game or the 3 matches 4 game playoffs to emerge victorious. So let's start with the Outer Rim League. Like, not it's that was strictly an online league, correct?
Yeah, it was sort of anyone who didn't have a local league could join. So we had Drew in there,
Okay.
Mike Kessling, we had Dylan. I think Taco Bill played a few games if I remember correctly. It was a pretty stacked league,
Yeah.
and I think it came down to the last one between me and Dylan.
Wow. I mean, just those names that you mentioned off right there. Those names are all essentially. I mean, the last time I checked, they were all on the top 25 list of current Star Wars players. They're all really high level players. So the fact that you came out of that league says a lot.
Well, I think it was like great prep for Worlds, right? Because you play
Mm-hmm.
6 games every month against people like that.
Yeah.
In addition to OCS, right? If OCS is a great practice ground also.
Yeah, let's not talk about your OCS run because I think I think you took down, you selected Bill Kafer as your first round match, and yeah,
that one was after Worlds though.
That was after Worlds.
The lead up to Worlds was good.
Because we did the draft at Worlds, and I know Justin picked Eric Spixma, and I think you were the number 2 seed, and you picked Bill, and Bill had a nice run. I mean, I wouldn't feel too bad because not only did he beat yourself, he beat Joe Olsen in the next round. I mean, if it wasn't for Bastion, who knows what could have happened with Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was picking, it was sort of everyone was good, right? There wasn't.
Yeah.
I didn't pick Bill because I thought he was just you have to pick someone, and it's more about that Bill often plays. He doesn't play off the wall decks always, and so it's like maybe I'll know what he play, and I think that came very close, but he got it in the end.
Yeah, it was. I will say this, from watching the game, it looked like it was a really good game, and it felt like it was one of those games where one key move would have sent it in either direction.
Yeah, and I hadn't played online for a while, so I wasn't like used to the time management still. So I think I got down to the last couple seconds, and he got me with the classic, initiate a battle and then kill all your force.
Any trick, any advantage you get to win the game in high level play, as long as it's not cheating, do it.
Yeah, it's like,
but
there's a few of those, right? There's the draw your last card with QMC, and you get you got with them once, and then you remember them for next time.
Yep. And that's, I think, is the skill of a high level player, is even though everybody is prone to mistakes. I mean, even if you're Bastion, Johnny Chu, Justin Desai, yourself, high level players do make mistakes. It's how you respond to the mistakes is what that separates the high level players from the guy who hosts Holotheatre.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think we're really all bad at this game. Just some of us are, there's different degrees of bad, but we're all bad at it.
I like that. I think that's going to be the quote of the so far the quote of the year. We're all bad at this game. It just depends on who's
it's just such a hard game that there's so much more you could do.
It is. Like I don't think there's any other game. I mean, I remember when the game was in print from Decipher. It was notoriously the hardest collectible card game or trading card game out there. I don't know exactly if it stands that way now, but you got to think it's up there. So, but yeah, I mean, you took, like I said, so we talked a little bit, like you said, the Outer Rim League was no joke. There was a lot of high level players, and you made it out of there to get to the Champions League. And then as for your pod was not an easy pod per se. I know that you were in there with Brian Fred. And Brian, I mean, he's a really good player, really skilled. It seems like he's almost able to play any deck as long as he I mean, he's got. I mean, he can play almost any deck, and I mean, he does like certain decks, but then he's got that team where they have so much data, and there's like 500,000 players on there. It just feels like it's kind of an unfair advantage.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is they can just sort of post like, I want a deck list for this deck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone will give them one that's been played a bunch. So I think he played in at least so he was in the same pod, but we ended up playing in the top 8 right away also because
Yes.
he was one of the 2 wild cards, and he played he played WAP in the pod, which I don't think I'd ever seen him play before.
Oh, he loves WAP. I know
Yeah,
that.
I hadn't seen it, I don't think. And then he played Deal in the top 8, which I think I don't know if I've seen him play that either.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen him play it ever as well, which is interesting because like the fact that he played it. I don't know, like you were saying it, like you didn't know what to really put him on. So, but I looking at the pod, like you said, you played against Brian Fred, you played against Paul McPherson, and then Al Fuentes. And you ended up going 10 and 100 in pod play. That's impressive. Like, and I think you were looking at the list and everything. You were the only player with a plus differential of 100 or more.
Yeah, I think I got a couple big beatdowns in and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And even against like Brian Fred, for example, I mean, you lost to him by 11, but then you beat him by 24. So that says a lot right there. But yeah, you mentioned it. You played him in the initial round, the top 8 of the event. As the 2 seed, you had to play the 7th seed. Brian was the higher of the 2 wild card seeds. So what was your thoughts when you had to face him down for 3 games in the entire event?
I mean, I thought it was, I think he's probably maybe very arguably the 3rd best player of everyone who's in the Champions League.
Okay.
So I was not happy to have to play him 3 times in a row.
That's fair.
Because we also played our pod games, or the last 2 games we played.
Mm-hmm.
We really did play like 3 games right in a row. And I imagine he wasn't super happy about it either.
I mean,
Sure.
it almost felt like I know that this has happened in like the NFL where certain teams have had to play division rivals in the playoffs again after they played them twice. It kind of felt like that to me, and I know a lot of people were like, well, let's try and make it so that doesn't happen again. If it happens, it happens. It's kind of fun. It's a good storyline.
You like the sort of grudge match?
I do. And especially when you have each player taking 1 game from each the other. I mean, it was a winner take all final
to settle it.
Exactly. I mean, as a fan of high level play, what more can you ask for?
Yeah.
So, but against Brian Fred, like you said, he played This Deal's Getting Worse All the Time with walkers like the ATSTs. You played Hidden Base. Why Hidden Base?
So at Worlds I lost 1 game at Worlds to at the beginning to Charlie Arlinson.
Okay.
But then the closest game I had was actually to one of Chu's kids, where and he was playing the Hidden
Enough
Base.
said.
Enough said. It impressed me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were impressed.
And so I was like, this deck looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
He could have beat me, so it can beat Rops.
Okay.
Especially, Rops got hit a little bit by errata. Probably not a huge amount against Hidden Base, but can definitely beat like a whole bunch of things. And so I figured, why not try it out? It'll definitely be a bit of a surprise. And I think it's important, especially in this sort of online match play where you get to choose your deck for each opponent. Yes. You got to keep up. You can't, maybe don't always choose surprises, right? Because there's a reason that the top decks are the top decks.
Yeah.
But it's nice to sometimes play these other things, and then even the later opponents have to think like maybe you might do that. So they have to.
And it's funny because within the Champions League, each of the first two rounds of the playoffs, it was a 1 game playoff. How did you think about that? What was your did you have any like strategy going into that? Because all you had to do was win 1 game instead of winning 2.
Yeah, I guess I don't usually think that much about diff in the match play things. Because I mean, you try to win the games, and winning games is harder than getting bigger diff
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. But it does affect things a little bit. Where something like hidden base, um, often might not win by a huge diff because often you're going to be doing drains, they're going to be doing drains. Um, right? So it's not like one of these decks where you can lock your opponent out completely always.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Often it's this drain race, and a drain race tends to be lower diff. So it's definitely the kind of thing that's probably better to play in this kind of one-off, win 1 game sort of format than in a match play diff kind of situation.
Mm-hmm. And was there a reason why you played light side over dark side against Brian Fred?
Not really. I just sort of had the hidden base in mind. It's like, let's do this.
Okay.
I know some people. I don't know that a lot of people are very confident saying which side they think is stronger.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to not feel so confident. Often I feel that one side is easier to choose a deck for, which doesn't necessarily mean it's stronger.
Okay, that makes sense. I know a lot of people felt that way going into Worlds. Like everybody, I think a lot of people felt that Dark Side was stronger than Light Side, and I think that was relevant with, I mean, the fact that Rops was one of the, if not the best deck at Worlds last year.
Yeah, although I think only 3 people played sort of classical Rops at Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know exactly why. Maybe people thought that, there's always this guessing game, but
yeah,
maybe people thought there were certain decks that were really good against it that people would play or something like that.
And then in the second round, you got paired up against Connor Britton. Again, you decided to go with Light Side, and you changed it up to Quiet Mining Colony. What made you go with that deck in particular?
I mean, I've always liked Quiet Mining Colony.
Okay.
I think it does well against a lot of decks that do unfair things.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's a lot of decks that you can just say, you're doing this unfair thing over there. I'm just going to drain at 5 different Cloud City sites and not run into your unfair thing. So I think that's something that I like doing because then you're sort of in control of your own destiny a lot more. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I think it was the top played deck at San Diego also. So I think a lot of people agree that it's one of the better light side decks. So I think in the stats that got released, I think it only won 35% of the games that it played.
Yeah,
so it had a quite low.
I mean, I know that Daniel had really good success with it at San Diego. I think he went. I think he lost maybe 1 or 2 games with it, but again, he had really good success with his Agents of Black Sun as well.
Yeah.
So, and
yeah, that was a very close game against Stubley.
Mm-hmm.
And Imperial Decree is a card that I didn't have at day 1 of Worlds in Rops. So he was playing Rops.
Yes.
So Imperial Decree is a card I didn't have in day 1, and I lost to Charlie Arlinson playing QMC.
Okay.
And then I sort of saw other people using it, and so I made sure I put that in for day 2 because I think that's a huge card in a whole bunch of different matchups. QMC being one of the big ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so that game against Stubley, I thought I had everything locked down, and then he Tarkin's Bounty for Imperial Decree, and almost got back in.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting to see that because I think I remember that you had the system pretty much. It was your system for a while, just because you were able to utilize. I think it was either Yoda or I Don't Like Sand to cap the drains. But I mean, once he found the Imperial Decree non-B, it made the game a little tighter.
Yeah.
And
I think I was actually running in space.
You were running in space. That was right. Yeah, because he
had one turn where he deployed 2 Star Destroyers and like 2 shuttles or something.
Yep. Now I remember. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And then it was interesting because on the opposite side in the semifinals, we saw Joe Olsen also play Quiet Mining Colony, but he had to face down ISB. What were your thoughts on seeing that match?
I mean, my impression was that it was over quite quickly. I don't know what cards he was looking for, but Chris said there were cards in his force pile he wanted, and he drew a lot up and then got hit by the new defensive shield.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know what cards he was looking for, but it seemed like that didn't go so well.
Okay. And then, like I just alluded to, in the finals, you had to face against Joe Olson. Game one is the higher player. You decided to go with light side. So game one, you played with he is the chosen one against Joe Olson playing Rops. What made you pick that match, and why that Hitco?
Yeah, so I've had that deck for maybe sometime before Worlds. I had it sitting around.
Okay.
And basically the idea was that, I noticed that against Hitco, you almost always pulled 3 or 4 shields right off the bat, right? So they deploy Luke, so you pull Battle Plan. They're flipped, so they're retrieving, so you pull some kind of retrieval shield. They're probably playing Sense, you probably pull a Sense shield. Sometimes people pull one retrieval shield and then another retrieval shield. And of course, you've always got the grabber. All right. So that was one thing I noticed. The other thing is that almost nobody's been playing any defensive shield pullers.
Yes.
So a lot of decks, you say, oh, I've got, the Imperial Arrest Order and Secret Plans combo. That's one shield, right? So I only need 4 more, and that'll work out fine.
Yep.
Of course, Secret Plans is one of the shields that doesn't really do that much against a shield busting deck. Right.
True.
It's very soft, right? It says, pay a little bit extra force, but it's not actually going to stop you from doing anything. So then basically I went into Jump and I opened up the Dark Side defensive shields and I made a list of all the cards that they canceled.
So before we go any further, I'm actually going to pull up the deck list on the PC site just so our viewers at home can actually see what we're getting into. Let's see. The character base was a little interesting because one of the characters that you don't normally see in Hitco is Baze Malbus with gun. Why Baze?
So again, there's maybe 3 or 4 characters that you could put in that spot. There's just sort of an amount of characters that I wanted, and so there's him, there's Cassian, there's definitely a couple others. So these sort of characters that are kind of the best characters from No Idea, right? Are all pretty decent characters. And you want a rebel, so for Jedi Presence.
Okay. And then see Han with heavy blaster pistol. I mean, that makes sense because you get an extra destiny with Luke. I know a lot of people in their Hitcos like to run the General Solo or Han Solo Optimistic General now, but I like the Han with blaster pistol. But,
yeah, so usually if you got Tydirium, right, then the General Han is good. But once you put all these cards in the deck, you can't really fit anything else.
No, because this is where it gets really interesting. So looking at the effects, you have Beggar, Goonie Tay ×2, Draw Their Fire, which is like you were talking about with the Secret Plans and everything. That's a good card for that. Never Tell Me the Odds, and Revolution. What? Is this 1998 2000 Star Wars CCG?
Yeah, so basically you just usually they're only going to have 1 or 2 shield pulls yet. Goonie Tay will usually get canceled. It seems, because it tends to be the kind of card that comes down earlier, right? It's a more proactive card.
Yes.
But it also is so strong that they really often have to cancel it.
Yeah.
Some decks can get away with paying +2 for everybody, but a lot of decks, it's really a must cancel. Because the thing is, if you look at the characters, you can still fight, right? It's not.
Yes.
It's not like they can just say, oh, I'll just do fair things, and you can go fight them. So usually that one I think often gets canceled. Never Tell Me the Odds is surprised, right? I sort of noticed, you played Luke, who's Destiny 6. And then you've got, Owen and Beru, who's Destiny 3, which is not too bad. Yoda is Destiny 4. Those are sort of your 3 characters that you really like to put down early. And so often you can get, that's a total of 13, right? And then a lot of decks are putting out 3 characters with Destiny 1. That's a 10 force loss with the insert. The other really cool thing I like is you got the sense combos. So if you need to make them lose 10 force right now, you can make them redraw. Right, and then you can like walking back the insert.
Yep.
Um,
And then just do it all over again. And I kind of like it because it has the added bonus of playing. I feel the conflict. So if you are when and if you do fight, you're probably going to win, and then they stack another card.
yeah,
And then looking at your interrupts, again, like you said, the sense and recoil on fears were there. Then you have weapon levitation,
the
neighboring
harvest.
leads, harvest. I find keep your eyes open to be very interesting. I know this is like a fighty type of a deck. There's no blaster deflection, but being that you run a lot of characters that aren't able to play blaster deflection, that kind of makes sense to keep your characters on the table. And then
And it's also sort of like if you're nab running in front of like a Dr. Evazan or something,
mm-hmm.
right? You wanna let that battle go through and not just lose all your guys to some weapons.
And then you've got 2 copies of Jedi Presence. That's so interesting. Like, it's so not the normal.
Well, that's like naturally you're doing the beggar, right? You've got the
mm-hmm.
beggar and draw their fire. So that's sort of often you end up winning with that.
Oh yeah. And then as for your locations, you're really light when it comes to the locations. I mean, you're just running Dagobah's Yoda's Hut, Anakin's the Funeral Pyre, which is now started instead of the Jedi Council Chamber, your normal Ewok Village, and the Lars Moisture Farm. How do you feel about Hitco losing the Jedi Council Chamber? First of all,
I think that there's sort of two things that happen there. One is that it no longer takes a spy to go drain, right? They can deploy to the Ewok village and just move over.
mm-hmm.
So that's a slight difference. The other thing is you can no longer pull Yoda, but it used to be that you couldn't play the virtual moisture farm.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't have a natural place to have Yoda teleport to anyway.
Okay.
So now you get back in a sort of exchange for not pulling Yoda, you get a place that you can teleport to. So I think that's sort of right, and the drain's now only for 2 instead of for 3.
Mm-hmm.
Though of course, like a drain for 3, you could ultimatum it. So I think it's basically a quite neutral trade-off. I think the biggest difference is that I don't think Ewok Village stops vehicles anymore.
I will have to check that because I know it became a 2-1 site. It still has the game text. If a Skywalker's there, projection won't move. But I will have to check that.
I have to double check, but I don't know if there was room for that on it.
Okay. And then you only play 1 Luke lightsaber. Like I know Hitco normally runs 2, just so if you lose 1, you don't have to burn a Walkling retrieval for it. Why only 1?
It's just sort of one of the casualties of having to include these, 6 or 8 or something other cards
mm-hmm.
that you just lose room for other things, right? You can't play Tidarium. It's hard to fit a second lightsaber in. And I think Luke will die less in this kind of version, right? You're more sort of stacking guys at your farm rather than going aggressively and attacking them.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because a lot of the time what you're doing is you're playing guys to your farm and you're pulling from your use pile all the cards that their defensive shields don't cancel.
And, so I did check on it. The Ewok Village still, unless they have updated it. It does still say no starships or vehicles there. So really don't have to worry about general views on a walker, which is still really good. So so with this one, you played. You decided to go first with the Hitco surprise. I'm assuming you surprised pretty much everybody with this deck. I know you surprised myself and Garrett. We were sitting there just crazily, as we commentated, crazily talking about how the fact that like nobody plays these cards anymore. But you played against Rops, and were you putting Joe on Rops at all?
I think that was it. I mean, he's always saying that he thinks Rops is very good, so I don't think that was a surprise, really. There were other things that he could have played, definitely, but Rops was certainly one of them.
Okay. And unfortunately, you had a little bit of an issue with game 1, where I know that it was at one of those games where it felt like, again, you're playing against a high-level opponent. There was a lot riding on it, and you needed to be able to think about what you were doing. And unfortunately with GIMP, there's a 5-minute timer and everything. What was your mindset when that happened?
Yeah, that was just. I mean, I think I was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 100% sure, but probably like by at least like low numbers. So I felt like that just sort of switched the diff by 20 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up with a win by 17.
Yeah.
So he had cards in his hand that were certainly not going to get back into his deck and things like that. But I think the big thing is there's no warning, right? And so I don't think it matters that there's a decision timeout, but I think it would be great to have a warning.
Mm-hmm.
If a judge walks by a tournament and sees someone playing slowly, right? They don't immediately say, you lose the game, right? They say, speed up, take a move. And so I think the big thing to change would be to at least add a warning. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I know a lot of people in the Slack chat and everything. I think a few people who watched it, they agreed with you on that. And I know, like I said, it was a decision because you really took your time because you were in the middle, I believe, of your control phase. You just got done activating. You wanted to go back, activate a few more. I think there was a play or something in between, and you weren't able to go back and activate the desired force. So you really had to think about what you were going to do there to compensate for that. So
yeah, well, I had a play in mind, but so I had something and then a 7.
mm-hmm.
And I wanted the 7 for one battle. And so I said, I could make this other battle in somewhere else, draw the other destiny, then go and draw the 7 in the battle I wanted it for.
Okay.
So I was just trying to figure out if there was a better play. And it was sort of I had 22 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
The game was nearing its end, and I felt like, I should take my time and think it totally through. But, and then you lose track of how much, it's hard to keep track of how much time you've been thinking for when you're busy thinking, right? You're not thinking about how much time has passed.
Yeah.
So I think the big thing is some kind of visual reminder that make a move now, or you're going to lose the whole game.
And so going into game 2, again, you're on dark side. You picked both you and Joe picked the decks that you were going to play before you even played game 1. Like, you had to submit the deck list and everything, and you decided to go with Thrawn. Why Thrawn?
I think a lot of people think that Thrawn is one of the better decks right now. It's a very solid deck, especially for match play. If it's your second game, you can drain for 3, and then they do whatever, and then you drain for 3, and they do whatever, and right. So if you won the first game, then you can play this very safe game with it. It's also it's got tons of strong cards. It's got some weaknesses. I think we're still in the early stages where people are figuring out what's good against it. If you can pile up a lot of power in front of Thrawn, then it's not so good. I think we're seeing some different versions. I think like the version that I saw Cal Eldred playing at San Diego had more sort of space tricks than my version. Had like lateral damage, and I've lost R2.
Yeah, that was again, people are bringing out cards that we normally don't see with this new this new revamped meta, and that's one thing I'm really enjoying.
I think R2 Brave Little Droid is a card that's underplayed.
Yeah,
people should play it a bit more. It's a 6, and it actually stops both of those cards. So I wonder if we'll see that come back a little bit, right? Because especially I've lost R2, right? And then you put R2 down and you've got your Osterman back.
It's not a bad point. Yeah, I agree with you there. So, and Joe decided to go with Diplo. What was he flipped over Diplo? What was your going through your mind?
So I played one game of Thrawn against Diplo before, and it was just sort of an absolute massacre. Thrawn has a huge amount of power that it can put down. My Thrawn was quite high destiny, so you've got a good chance of drawing like a 5 or a 6. And then, so you either make them peel a bunch of cards or they lose the Tantive. And then from there, you've got control of the system. You can put a guy on the ground, start draining, things like that. So it sort of gets out of hand for Diplo quite quickly is what we've done.
And it was kind of interesting because, like, doing commentary with Garrett during the game, I think he said that you had the best opening hand for Thrawn.
Oh yeah, I sold my soul just before.
Like that.
The,
Yeah,
I guess the one part of the the devil gives and he takes, and I didn't draw good destiny for most of the game,
mm-hmm.
but I didn't really need to because I had all the cards.
The power that you had was insane. I know that you started off with Thrawn. You went down. I think you had Pelion as
Yeah.
well, and then the ability to play Admiral Ozzel V to pull the Stalker and just combine that with a bunch of different guys, including I think
Well,
it was
I think Mahdi, who's the most power in one guy,
yeah.
and also I had the Admiral's Order, so everyone was cheap, and the Biker Scout pair.
Yeah, the fact that you had the biker scout on top of it was just like the icing on the cake.
And Imperial Command to limit
Yeah.
him.
And
But the crazy thing was, and this is something you guys couldn't see, is I was down to maybe 2 cards in hand. I think a Gick and a Price, and I had 1 card I could draw, which was Mara Jade.
yeah.
Right. Because the one thing I couldn't do is like do anything the next turn.
Yes, that was the one thing. And I know Joe really didn't do much. He ended up moving the Tanev to Alderaan, but with the fact that you could just follow with the Stalker was it was almost like, Joe, what do you do? And I know that you essentially did put him into that spot. You put him into almost every bad spot he could be with, unfortunately.
Well, that Stalker was. So I was talking to Connor Britton, and there's sort of 2 starters for it. You could put Vengeance or Stalker,
mm-hmm.
And he convinced me that Stalker. I think he said something basically like Stalker can win the game for you. Vengeance can just add a little bit. Go for Stalker.
Okay.
So I messaged him after and I said, thank you.
I think he was. I don't know if I remember if he was watching or not. But yeah, the fact that the Stalker was just able to follow the Tantive to Alderaan like that was just. It was impressive. Like, I know Garrett and I were talking. Do you move it? I mean, I think at that point though, you were doing so much. You were able to do so much damage because you were getting the Drain of 2 at the Tatooine system with the Chimera and Thrawn, plus the damage for the art effect, and then you were doing more damage because you had the Stalker at Chandrilla. And I think you just decided to go for it all at that point.
Yeah, I think if you don't clear the Tantive in a situation like that, then the other person could like get back in space and sort of take a system and have some actual space presence. But taking out their ship again, I think Joe had Tigurian by itself or something like that.
Yes, yeah, he did.
Right? But that's going to be running away for the rest of the game at that point. Whereas if it was with Tantive, then maybe you could start putting something together.
Okay. Well, again, congratulations on the win. I mean, the fact that you played interesting decks is stuff that people don't normally see, especially with like this Hitco that was just broke the spirit almost of Chris Kelly because you just put in so much different stuff. But that was just great. So
I mean, and something I want to say is it's not totally a gimmick deck. I think you could still play it.
I know a lot of people were trying it out on Gemp, so definitely. I mean, in the last couple of months, it's interesting to see like everybody's playing either some variant of a 9s deck where you play multiple copies of Arsing's Blaster Rifle, and now people are playing this shield busting Hitco. So I like the innovation. And I really hope that the game still warrants that going forward.
I think we can get into these, into a rut as a whole community where sort of everyone copies everyone else's decks, and there's some kind of, there's like a little aspect that people forget that, we always used to include shield pullers, and at some point we stopped, and you have to look back at those things and say like, oh, there's that thing that we always used to do, and no one's doing that anymore.
I'll tell you what, though, playing on a team with Chris Werfs, make sure you play your shield pullers. Like, he loves playing like Watcher Step pod racing. Like, but Mike, when you said when was the last time anybody really played a deck like that?
Yeah, and we even saw in SoCal, Daniel had Cold Feet.
Yeah,
and so he actually, I guess maybe he forgot that it can cancel a Jedi's Resilience. Mm-hmm. But Drew had like 4 copies of a Jedi's Resilience, and so it would have been like a great card there, right?
Yeah, and I think at that point though, like, I know they played the same matchup before, and that was a thought. Like, I think it was Garrett and I who were streaming that game was like, maybe he knew about it, maybe he just doesn't care. But
Maybe he wanted the shield.
maybe he really wanted the shield. But yeah, there is a interesting point there.
But the point is, they're not blank cards.
No, they're not. And I mean, they're really good cards. I mean, there's a reason why they have stuck around for as long as they have, because they do really good stuff. I mean, shield cards are there for a reason. They're really powerful, and there's a reason why everybody that we can play as many shields as we want under starting effect at this point. It's because they're very situational, and you got to be mindful that, like, I hate playing decks where I only can play 4. Like, I feel like I'm missing something. So
yeah.
But then again, I've never won Worlds, so what do I know? But yeah, again, congratulations on the your win in the Champions League. It was definitely a fun and entertaining event. Playing in it and definitely watching it was definitely fun. So, but yeah. I know we talked about a little bit about this earlier with the Nationals and everything. What else do you have in store for 2023?
In terms of like events and things, so definitely OCS is a big one. Nationals I'm hoping to make, and Worlds, being second makes you hungry to finally get there.
Yeah. I mean, Worlds is in August. Like, is that I know last year it was in October. Does that change anything that's in August versus October for you?
I think that makes it way easier for me. So I teach, so I'm sort of teaching, January to April, and then September to December, and so the summer is right in the middle of more. It's not totally free time. I have other things that I do, but
yeah, and
it's easier to take weeks off and things. So I know for World, not this year but last year, I had to teach on Friday and then fly down afterwards, which is less fun.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Whereas this year I got to fly in on the Thursday, get a game of actually like touching physical cards in, which is so different.
It is.
And I felt way more comfortable this time.
Okay. Well, I think we can get into some really quick swing and a miss questions. I know that we only got 4 of them really quick. This is all about the meta going forward and everything. And then we do have a challenge card for you. See if we can get you a Holotheatre pack. Get some cool AIs and everything. So, first swing and a miss question for this evening. The Skywalker Saga is currently the best light side mains platform.
It's definitely at least tied, if not solely the best. I mean, it just won the Grand Prix, and I think it was pretty good before we did the tweaks, and it's only got very slightly better. There's a few other options that I think people sometimes are a little quick to forget. There's all these mains decks that didn't get played before because they were just slightly worse than Yoda Communing. I think people start looking back at them, but I think Skywalker Saga is definitely one of those.
I think you're right. The fact that your lightsabers won't get stolen is really good. Like the fact that you don't have to worry about General Grievous, you don't have to worry about weapon levitation. Like, you don't have to pull a shield for any of those.
Yeah, Grievous was one of the big counters to the deck.
Oh, before. Yeah. And the fact that they just said, okay, your lightsaber can't get stolen, I do like that because it makes it fair with, like, I am your father. Your thoughts stolen your mother is like a almost an exact copy of I am your father. Lightside doesn't have a card that's going to pull a lightsaber from your opponent's lost pile, so that kind of makes sense. At the same time, though, I still feel like the character base is a little restrictive. The fact that you can't play Qui-Gon Jinn, Serene Jedi, who's really good. You can't play Mace Windu, who's seeing a lot of play in Yoda Communing.
Yeah, but you do get... So one guy that Drew didn't use was General Kenobi.
True.
Right, so it sort of suggests that maybe there's not room, like you don't need more characters. You've got this great character that you're not playing.
Like, I know he played, 4 copies of Anakin, 3 copies of Rey. I played Luke with lightsaber, who's still really good, and I know that he didn't see a lot of play just because Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight is I'd say almost like the pinnacle of Luke's. Then you have Rebel Scout, who's really good, and then you also have Luke Skywalker The Last Jedi, who in Yoda Communing, and the fact that he would just had the fact that he had that full immunity was just insane. So and I think now we might see a little bit more Luke Skywalker with a lightsaber. I don't know. I think I would be a little. I would like to see more character base. I would like to see maybe let the Wookiee win Endor Pyre deck, so you can run the like my father before me's. I think those are playable. I know Jeff
Yeah.
Levine played an Endor Pyre deck where you just start the Endor Pyre plus 3 effects. I know Joe's a fan of that one. I think there are decks out there that people are playing and put in the right hands. They'll be really good.
I think Hiko got some interesting things.
Yeah, and
the
exactly.
changes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think people just haven't explored things yet.
Yeah. Okay.
But definitely, the Skywalker saga is definitely like as good
fun.
as the other ones, probably.
The retrieval, I think, really helps it.
Yeah.
You can retrieve so much. I think we saw Drew play it, and with the fact that he was playing Draw the Fire, there was a turn where he retrieved almost 3/4.
And when we were sort of like designing the deck in D&D, the idea was that there were all these mains decks that sort of deployed a bunch of guys at one site and just sat there.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted something that was a mains deck but different with the hit and run.
Yeah, and
I think that's really what we accomplished.
I missed that with the old school play EPP,
draw their fire, resilience.
I miss those kind of decks. Like I think that was one of the best, most fun decks. I mean, I know Throne Room is like there's a disdain to it because light side's not supposed to go first, and with Walkling and stuff, you got so much activation. But it was fair because I mean, if you got Throne Roomed, everybody knows that phrase because it happens.
Yeah.
So, but hey, it's going to be interesting. I know Set 21. I don't know when it's coming out. Maybe we'll see some additional help for some other mains platforms. But who knows? I know you know because you're on the team.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the other thing is I don't think Yoda communing is that bad.
I don't think it is either.
I think Qui-Gon is probably pretty bad now, but the Yoda deck.
Qui-Gon's going to be different. Like I like the fact that we saw a little bit of change to it with, it's more of an Episode 1 Jedi deck. Like I think that's fine. I mean, I for one would love to see an Episode 1 Jedi deck like we had in Legacy. Like I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
So, okay. Question number 2 is Thrawn is currently the top option for Dark Side. I think we covered this a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I think it's certainly the boogeyman now.
And it's funny because like right before this, we went live and everything. I know on Slack, and again, if you're not a member of Slack, please join. It's a great way to talk to everybody and communicate within the Star Wars family. But everybody's saying like it's a big boogeyman, especially because of like cards like do they have a co-clearance, which adds a lot of value to your high forfeit value Imperials. I don't think you need those cards. I mean, we saw what you did with it with Imperial Arrest Order.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the top deck right now. If it's the top deck in a month, I'm not so sure.
I agree. The deck that I think, and I've been talking to members of the Killer Bees at this point with it, and this was right before the changeover with the Sweet Set and everything, was Agents of Black Sun. Like,
yeah, we saw that have a huge credit at the San Diego.
It's insane. Like it didn't see a hit. Lightside Mains kind of saw a hit. And looking at the decks that are out there, it does decent against QMC. Yeah, there are ways to beat Agents with QMC. I mean, evidence of what Drew did, but it's still a really good deck, and it didn't get any negativity towards it with the tweak set.
And I think it's more like it's harder to do something that, Thrawn. There's certain things you can do that Thrawn doesn't like, right? Like not giving it an icon on the first turn. I think Agents, it's harder to do those things.
Yeah, and the other thing is like Thrawn. If you can get down and get past like your Imperial commands, he's only immune to attrition without the Admiral's Order at less than 5. Like, it's not hard to crack.
Yeah.
So I think Thrawn is, like you said, it's the boogeyman. It's facilitating that kind of in a way that OA role that OA did for a while, but now it's like in the dark side way. But I still think that in the right hands, a deck like Agents of Black Sun, Rops it could be is as well, but that's actually going to be our next question. So
Yeah. So I'd say a hit for now, but
yeah,
not in a month maybe.
I'm going to say miss for now. Uh, on to question 3, which is Rops is no longer a top 3 dark side deck.
I think that's a hit. I think it's maybe 5, maybe 6.
Yeah.
I think there's a pretty good claim that Thrawn, Shadow Collective, CCT, and Agents maybe even bring them before me.
Okay,
Potentially
that's
all better.
interesting. Two decks that definitely took a nice big hit with the tweak set. I was going to say even like these Revenge of the Sith decks could be up there too. Saw a few people play those this past weekend. I know Greg played the Rops Nines deck and did rather well with it, but that's also a kind of a
Yeah,
weird.
I don't think Rops is not dead. It's just
No.
not. I think people haven't adjusted the Rops list yet.
Yeah, I mean losing Imperial enforcement and the ability to retrieve an Emperor was really big.
When you got away with playing 19 characters
Yeah,
in a control deck, right?
yeah, it seems weird.
Yeah. Right now, maybe you want 22, 23.
Yeah. And you can't. I mean, the ability to not have that lost version of close call really hurt. Like the fact that you could just cycle the close calls. Yeah, I mean, Rops in the right hands is still good, but at the same time, I don't think it's like you said. I don't think it's a top 3. I know CCT, like you said, and AOBS are definitely up there, and then I think we just alluded to it with Thrawn. So
yeah, I think that's the hit. No longer a top 3 deck set.
yeah. I will agree. And then we just alluded to this one as well. So, despite not being represented at the San Diego Super Open, Shadow Collective is still a good dark side option.
So I think that's a hit.
I don't know. I mean, I know Mike Kessling said that he liked it. It was an option for him.
I was sort of surprised that none of them played it. None of the new allies people. I expected at least one.
I know that they put a lot of work in with Thrawn, so that kind of makes sense. I know Mike has he's a big like I want that map deck. So Brian Fred plays Brian Fred decks. Like I mean, he even told me he was like, yeah, I didn't put a lot of work in for this event. So the fact that he just was stuck with Verge kind of shows. But outside of that, like I know Dennis is I want that map, Dooku or Revenge of the Sith type of a deck player. So. I don't know, like even Drew didn't play it. So
I think the biggest hit to the deck is actually the fact that they can cancel your destinies now.
Yes.
The fact that you can only add or subtract once per turn, I think, is not a huge deal because often the matchups where you want to add are different. Like often you want to add to hit a Jedi, and you want to subtract to stop like a non. If the non-mains deck just draws a 4, you want to subtract 1, make it a 3, and only lose a blaster.
Yeah,
and so I think. Those are sort of disjoint situations, right? You often.
Yeah. And we have our first person in the chat all night. Thank you, Bill. Bill saying that losing Sith Furious is the biggest hit to it.
That's
you know what? I agree. The fact that you no longer can cancel and redraw a character when you don't want to see characters at all when you draw Destiny, like you need to have those to hit any of the Jedi. Now that you can't. Like, I mean, yeah, you can still redraw them, but you can't take it into hand to have their form again. The other thing is, like, I don't know if I necessarily like playing. Oh crap! What is the card? They will never see the Maul effect.
Right.
Like, you really don't play that anymore. Like, Maul is not as good as he once was in that deck.
I think he's still good. I would still play that.
Okay. And like I mean, you can't add or subtract. You can't. They can still cancel your destiny where Maul is. I mean, you must have to put a blaster on him. I feel like.
I think the saber is great for, your destiny's so high. You get 2 swings.
True.
You get to add to drains.
Okay. I mean, if Mike says it's good, I mean I've never lost to Mike playing Shadow Collective, like when he plays it. then again, I've also only played No Idea against him. So, but if Mike says it is still viable, I'm going to say it's a hit here. So, but again,
Yeah, I say it's a hit.
we'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, and then as for our last thing of the evening, let's go ahead and bring up our challenge. So we have what is the underlying card of this V card? So I'm going to give you a V card. You just tell me what the underlying card is. You have 15 seconds.
Right.
And I forgot that you were on design, so
we don't choose the underlying cards though.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that doesn't necessarily mean.
And if you need it, you will be allowed one helper in the chat. So if you decide to go with the chat, you and the person that you go with will win a prize as well. So your card is Ensign Eli Vanto. Your timer starts now.
No, this one I haven't built a physical deck with him. I guess Taco Bill's the only person in the chat.
Tacos. I mean, we do have some players in the chat like Charlie, Jep, Tom, Gregson. You know what? I'm also going to add it, so it's going to be a 30-second timer from now on. These things are hard.
Charlie says got the spreadsheet open. Yeah, I've Chief Bast, I guess, or maybe Jump.
Ensign Eli Vanto. What's the underlying card?
Although it's Jump Tom, right? So
yep, that is.
I don't think you know from Jump either.
Okay. I will need an answer. I did hear Chief Bast. Is
that
going to be
Chief
your final?
Bast, maybe he's an Imperial.
He is. Bill is saying Lieutenant Venka, and Jep Tom is saying we have one that says Lieutenant Venka, or sings Blast Rifle, and
I think Bast might already be something.
And then CCS. I can't. Again, I'm.
All right, I'll go with Venka.
Venka. Okay.
Yeah.
Matt, I'm sorry. You should have went with.
Is it Cesius?
Cesius.
Yeah, because on Jump they don't show you, right?
They don't. Yeah, they don't show you the underlying card, which I would really love for them to do that. I know that's asking a lot of our slicers, but I think that would just be an added plus to it. But I'm not going to ask for anything that I can't do myself.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we'd want to see it, playing a game, right?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't mind it. We see it in real life.
Yeah.
There's a reason why at the bottom it says it.
Yeah,
there you
go. It means
I like that.
You start building decks for a physical thing, and suddenly you have all these random cards that you've never seen before.
I like that though. Just if you shift click on it, you can see the card underneath. I like that.
Yeah.
That I do like. But
yeah, usually what I end up doing is printing all the V cards off, and then going back and seeing which cards do I need to pull out.
Using the V kit to print them out, and then going through
Yeah, but it's only once you got them printed out that you know what they're supposed to go on top of.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's all we have time for tonight, Matt. So, again, I want to thank you for showing up tonight. It is always great to talk to you. Hopefully, we'll talk again soon. Next week, we're intoxicating Daniel Amore, a runner-up at the San Diego Super Open on. I know that we had Drew on Sunday, so let's get Daniel on for the first time. Yeah, that's all we got for tonight. So, as always, enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. If you're in the areas where it's getting snow, tornadoes, be safe out there, and may the force be with you.